This is the final chapter in our series on the Gaza-Israel conflict, a journey through history, identity, power, and pain. Today, we confront the toughest part, the unbearable human cost, the fears that drive nations, the bias in global narratives, and the ultimate question, can peace ever triumph over war? Because beyond the numbers, beyond politics, lies a deeper reality. Millions of people, parents, children, families, trapped in a cycle that repeats with deadly precision. This isn't just a war of weapons. It's a war of memories, borders, identities, and generations of trauma. Segment 1. Humanitarian Crisis versus Security Concerns. Gaza, a narrow strip of land just 41 kilometers long, home to more than 2 million people, many of them refugees or descendants of refugees from wars long past. It is one of the most densely populated places on Earth, where space is scarce and hope even more so. Since the blockade began in 2007, Gaza's economy has withered. Movement in and out is tightly restricted. Electricity comes in only a few hours a day. Clean water is nearly gone. And now, after the latest escalation, homes have turned into rubble. Hospitals are overwhelmed, entire neighborhoods erased. Children who make up more than 45% of the population are growing up knowing nothing but war. Psychologists call it collective trauma, a generation shaped by drones in the sky and funerals on the ground. But across the border in Israel, there is another story, a different fear, a different trauma. Since its creation in 1948, Israel has faced wars, invasions, intifadas, and suicide bombings. And in the minds of many Israelis, every escalation reawakens a primal fear: extinction. For years, Hamas has fired rockets from Gaza, targeting Israeli cities and towns. Though Israel's Iron Dome intercepts most of them, the psychological toll is heavy. Air raid sirens, bomb shelters, and the ever-present threat of tunnels and kidnappings. The Israeli government frames its actions as self-defense. It argues no country would tolerate such attacks on its civilians. Critics, however, point to the overwhelming scale of response. Thousands of airstrikes in civilian areas, asking whether security has become indistinguishable from punishment. And so, both peoples live in fear. One behind blockades, one behind walls. One fearing the sky, the other fearing the underground. One seeking freedom, the other safety. Segment 2. Global reaction and media bias. In the age of 24/7 news and social media, war is not just fought with bullets and bombs, but with headlines, hashtags, and narratives. And how this conflict is seen often depends not on what is happening, but where you're watching from. In the West, media coverage often leans toward Israel. The narrative tends to emphasize Hamas rocket attacks and Israel's right to self-defense. Images of wounded Israelis are replayed. Statements from Israeli officials dominate airtime. But in the global South, Arab nations, and many independent platforms, a different picture emerges. There, the focus is on Palestinian suffering, on children pulled from rubble, on funeral processions, on the sheer imbalance of power. This divergence creates two parallel realities, each reinforcing their own version of truth. And in between them lies a minefield of media bias, political agendas, and disinformation. Social media, once hailed as a tool for truth, has become a chaotic battleground. Misinformation spreads fast, often faster than facts. Old videos are shared as new, fabricated stories go viral, and worst of all, real human suffering becomes reduced to viral content, stripped of dignity, stripped of nuance. There is also the uncomfortable issue of double standards. Why do some nations rush to condemn one side, but stay silent on the other? Why are human rights celebrated in one region but ignored in another? This selective outrage isn't just hypocrisy, it's dangerous. Because it deepens divides, fuels resentment, and tells victims their lives matter less, depending on their nationality, ethnicity, or religion. Segment 3. The Way Forward: Peace or Perpetual War. With each round of violence, the death toll rises. And so does a question that has haunted this region for generations. Is peace even possible? The two-state solution, once seen as the most viable path to peace, now feels like a forgotten dream. Under that vision, Israel and a future Palestinian state would exist side by side, within secure borders with Jerusalem shared or divided. But today, that dream lies buried beneath decades of broken agreements, expanding settlements, political gridlock, and fading trust. Many Palestinians see the occupation as permanent. Many Israelis see withdrawal as a security risk, and extremist voices on both sides grow louder, drowning out moderates, silencing bridge builders. International diplomacy has tried. From the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, to the Camp David summit, to the more recent Abraham Accords that normalized relations with Arab states. But peace talks have repeatedly collapsed. Why? Because peace is not just about leaders shaking hands on a stage. It's about land, rights, dignity, security, and without addressing root causes, displacement, inequality, occupation. No agreement will hold. Yet despite all this, some refuse to give up. In both Gaza and Israel, there are people who risk their lives for peace. Activists, teachers, survivors, parents who lost children but refuse to hate. They organize dialogues, joint memorials, reconciliation workshops. They are the quiet resistance, fighting not with weapons but with hope. Hope that one day children won't have to know what war sounds like. Hope that borders will mean coexistence, not separation. Hope that humanity will be louder than hate. This series was not created to take sides. It was created to tell a story, the whole story. Not just the stories of governments, but of people. Not just facts, but feelings. And not just blame, but understanding. Because in every war, there are many truths, but one truth remains above all. The greatest victims are always civilians. Mothers burying their sons. Children waking up to sirens. Lives interrupted. Dreams shattered. As long as walls are built faster than bridges, peace will remain a dream. But perhaps it's a dream still worth chasing. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of justice, safety, and respect for all. And maybe, just maybe, that's something we can all agree is worth fighting for. Next Plane, where narratives collide and understanding begins.